What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, live for another NFL week of picks. It's pick time, baby. Week number 7 is here, and we have, just like week 6, a lot of awesome games where I feel like we're going to learn a lot of awesome things. Week 6 is typically the time where you learn things about the NFL. As I say, weeks 1 through 4, usually extended preseason. This year, literally the preseason. So, week 7 is kind of where teams start to gain an identity, and we start to see that injuries really matter and matchups really matter. And I talked about at the end of the bottom line, one of the questions was, who are the big contenders that you think can make it far in the playoffs? And I said, it's all up to the matchups. And that's how I truly do feel about the NFL right now. There is no team in football at this point that I would say is unbeatable. That is for sure the team that will win every game, that walks in a stadium and dominates every team. The teams that will do the best this year are the teams that can match up the best with every given opponent, and the ones that can avoid the matchups that they don't match up well against. So in week 7, we are going to see some key matchups in the NFL. I think headlined by the undefeated AFC matchup between the Steelers and the Titans. And we do have some pretty good other games as well. A big game, in my opinion, is the Bears and the Rams for potentially wild card city in the NFC. That is on Monday Night Football. We have a pretty good Sunday nighter as well, as John Gruden hosts his former team that he won a Super Bowl with, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This time there's a twist. Tom Brady is there. So the Bucs dominated the Packers, and now they're on Sunday night the week following. Is this the time for the Bucs to really supplant themselves as a true contender in the NFC and for people to see it? Because I think that's the thing that we're looking for now, is usually week 1, week 2, when you see teams on Sunday night, Monday night, primetime, Thursday night football, people remember that image for a long time. And it takes another primetime performance, maybe for the Bears or the Rams or the Bucs or the Raiders, to truly say, hey, you know what? That team is pretty good. So, week number 7, let's get our picks rolling. Before I forget, though, I need to show you my record because I forgot a couple weeks, and it's not fair to you guys to not see what my record is up to date before I give you my latest picks. So let's take a look at that record. My record for 2020 straight up is 64-24 and 1 thus far. I believe that's correct. I just updated it. Spread 51-36 and 3. And my best bets are 16, 11, and 2 that are exclusive to Patreon. That is where you can get my best bets. So I'm doing really good straight up. I think maybe even, arguably even better versus the spread. Last week versus the spread, I had probably my best week versus the spread I've had all year. I'm not sure about that, but I did better versus the spread than I did straight up. I went 10-4 straight up and 11-3 versus the spread. The games that I lost versus the spread, I lost, of course, the Vikings, which I actually ended up changing my pick, but because I picked the Vikings here on the show, I kept that one. And then I lost Dallas, and I lost the Bills. They didn't cover the 5.5 versus the Chiefs. So those were my only spread losses last week. So there you go. All right. So that is week number 6 update through 6 weeks. My record. All right, so let's start with Thursday Night Football. Before we do, though, you have to remember Gronk, spike that like button and subscribe to the Bottom Line View if you haven't already for weekly NFL picks. Also, comment your opinion. Let me know your favorite game of week number 7, who your best bets are in week number 7. Let me know in the comment section. Whether you're watching this live or after the fact, let me know your opinion on week 7. Okay. And as far as the updated record, damn, I'm all over the place here. As far as the updated record, I'm pretty sure the only one that would be incorrect there is the straight up. I'm pretty sure it's accurate though. But this season's been weird because of the whole changing games and stuff like that. So I'll have to look back and confirm it for next week. But as far as I've been keeping track, that is my record. And I know that as far as the pick'em on ESPN that we do, it is different because I picked the games beforehand. I brought that up a couple weeks ago. But yeah, let me know how you're doing as well in terms of your picks this year. So let's go to Thursday Night Football. Thursday Night Football is an NFC East showdown. The New York Giants at the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are -4.5 in this game the last time I saw it. I am picking the Eagles in this game, and I will also take the Eagles to cover the 4.5 points. And the reason is I think Carson Wentz has been playing a lot better football as of late, and I would say better than Daniel Jones as well. I would also say while the Giants defense has been surprising, I think the Eagles defense is fully capable of being pretty good versus this Giants offense that doesn't really offer a ton. I think it's a lot of Daniel Jones trying to create plays on his own, trying to create magic, and it's rarely ever there. The offensive line for the Giants is bad. The Eagles, their strength on defense is their defensive line and the ability to basically suffocate a quarterback and defend the run up the middle. So I think the Giants struggle to run the ball. This puts, especially an offense that loves to run the ball in early downs as much as the Giants, in bad positions to throw the ball versus a secondary that's improved. I think an X factor in this game for the Giants would be Evan Ingram. I've heard rumors that Evan Ingram could actually be traded, so look out for that. But I think him versus probably the worst linebacking core in football, he could have a big day if they get him involved. The struggle here with Evan Ingram is they have not used his athleticism well enough. They have not given him the football. They have not created plays to get him as a yak guy involved. Jason Garrett struggled in that regard. Darius Slayton is playing well, but he'll probably be matched up with Darius Slay as long as he is healthy for this game. The Eagles have flaws defensively, but I think where they're good is actually where the Giants are not good offensively. And I just struggle to see the Giants scoring more than 20 on basically any defense in football right now. They are outside of Dallas. I mean, and even in that Dallas game, that score wasn't really because of the offense. A lot of it had to do with turnovers and some funky plays that happened to the Cowboys. So I'm not believing in the Giants right now. I understand they beat Washington, but Washington's a team that we'll talk about struggles to score in their own right. I think the Eagles are the better coach team. They have the better quarterback. I think they're better on both lines of scrimmage, and the Eagles are getting healthier at receiver. Yes, Miles Sanders is hurt. Yes, Zach Ertz is hurt. I think Zach Ertz might be the most overrated playmaker in football right now, so I'm not really going to say that they're going to miss him so much. Maybe getting Deshaun Jackson back adds an element of stretch the field to this offense for the Eagles that I think will be helpful. Speed is a big thing for the Eagles offense. To have that in their group of weapons is going to be nice for them. I think the Eagles win this game. I'm not going to say it's going to be super comfortable. I could see them winning it comfortably by like 10, but I think it's going to be Eagles by a touchdown, somewhat of a boring game on Thursday night. I think it will be more defensive than offensive. I'm going to say like 23-17, 23-16 for the Eagles. So I'll take the Eagles to win. I'll take the Eagles to cover. Yeah, the Eagles' offensive line is also pretty beat up, but even if it's beat up, they did enough. They protected Wentz enough versus one of the most aggressive defenses in the Baltimore Ravens for them to come back in that game. And I think the thing with the Eagles that I just don't know if the Giants have is the Eagles' relentlessness. Their fight has always been there under Doug Peterson. And that's why I'll continue to pick them in games where they should win. Like, they should win this game, especially at home in a divisional matchup. They need this win to get a lead in this division. So I will take the Eagles, even if they're undermanned. It's not like they're less talented than the Giants. I think even if they're undermanned, they're probably more talented than the Giants. So I'm going to take the Eagles there. The next game is the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Tennessee Titans. This is arguably the game of the week, the game that most people will be tuning into and seeing how it goes down and seeing who can pick up the win here. This was weird because I believe the line started at 1.5, which were the Steelers were favored by 1.5, and then it went all the way to the Titans minus a point, which I think is kind of odd to me, considering that Taylor Lewan has been ruled out long-term for the Titans. And the Steelers have no new injuries really to speak of that are of any importance. Devin Bush got hurt, but I don't think that's as big of a loss as a left tackle. Bush is a key component, and I think it's worth talking about that the Steelers are going to have to change what they do. And I would say the importance of what they place on the linebacker position, because Devin Bush is a guy that is probably, like, numbers wise and production wise, he's not as good in that department, but his value and what he does and the role he plays is so important for the Steelers defense because he's all over the field. He's big in the middle of the field for their zone coverage. He's a blitzer. He's a guy versus a run that picks up the garbage. And that will be missed because they do not have the speed at the second level without him. So that is a big loss. But when you're talking about Taylor Lewan, one of the best left tackles in the game, especially when it comes to the tone that the Titans want to set. They are an aggressive offense in terms of they want to set the tone with their offensive rushing ability, their toughness, and what they are as a football team. What Mike Vrabel wants them to be is Derrick Henry. And without Taylor Lewan, who might be one of the most old school players in the new school football era, you're going to miss not only a great player, but also the edge that he brings to your offense. So that is scary when the Titans are now playing the team that creates the most pressure in football, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, the Steelers do this in a variety of ways. They do this by blitzing. They also do this by having one of the best front fours in the game. So I do think the Titans, an offense that's been arguably the best in football through the first 6 weeks, they will not play as well because you have to expect that Tannehill is going to see more pressure. And just because of that loss, they can't play to the same level. Now, if A.J. Brown and Corey Davis are winning their matchups on the outside with ease and they're able to hit a couple big plays, that's where the Titans could win this game, is if they're able to counter the Steelers' blitz effectively a few times in this game and hit big plays off of it. that's where they can be successful and Tannehill makes the big throw under pressure. But if they're not able to do that and their run game is not able to get going because it's going to struggle because the Steelers are the best run D in the NFL right now, them and the Bucs, then they're in trouble because Lewan is a big loss, and it's not like you have Conklin to fall back on. So he's gone as well, right? So overall, I am concerned about that offensive line. The Titans' defense is not nearly as good as it was a year ago. We kind of saw some of this regression coming. Losing Dean Pease was a big loss. Losing a guy like Jarrell Casey was a big loss. Logan Ryan was a big loss. We saw regression coming from the Titans' defense, but I didn't see it coming to this degree. Their defense right now is giving up a lot of points consistently week after week. They're not as great versus the run as they've been in years past. And their secondary, their defense versus the pass is just very sketchy. It's very unreliable. It's not like the Steelers' offense is like one of the best in the game, but it's good, it's competent, and Ben is still a good quarterback, and he has plenty of weapons to throw the ball to, and Chase Claypool, and Deontay Johnson if he plays, and Juju Smith-Schuster, Eric Ebron. So there's definitely some matchups that the Titans have yet to face this season. They've faced the Texans, put up a lot of points against them. Deshaun Watson played amazing in that game. We'll get to that a little bit later on, and they still lost the game. I think the Steelers are a good matchup for the Titans. So this is why I'm taking the Steelers. I think their ability to slow down Derrick Henry, their run defense being what it is going to force an offensive line without their left tackle to be put in uncomfortable positions, which will allow the Steelers to blitz, get pressure, and get enough stops. I'm not saying the Titans offense is going to disappear. I don't think it will. I think they'll still have success in this game. They'll still score. They'll still move the ball. But the Steelers being so good versus the run, so stout, so physical up front is going to take away the Titans' bread and butter, which is giving the ball to the big Derrick Henry. So on the flip side, the Titans' liability of their defense, Big Ben being a veteran quarterback, being able to still throw the football at a high level with the weaponry he has on the outside, makes more plays than the Titans offense. I think the Steelers win this game 27-21, something to that degree. I think this is a good game. I think we're going to learn a lot about both teams in the AFC picture in this game. But I think the Steelers being healthier in key spots. I am intrigued to see how the Titans attack a Steelers defense without Devin Bush. How does Vince Williams play in replacing him? What do they do to replace him? But I just look at the matchup and I say the Titans are a bad matchup for a lot of teams. A lot of teams in the AFC, really. But the Steelers are not one of them. I think the Steelers are a bad matchup for the Titans here. So I'm going to take the Steelers to win the game, and I will take the point. So that it is maybe the biggest game of the week. The next game is definitely not the game of the week. The Dallas Cowboys at the Washington football team. Washington is coming off a L where they went for two, trying to win the game on one play at the end. Riverboat Ron gambled. He went for it. I think this is the do not bet game of the week. Like, if you are not going to bet a game this week, don't bet the Cowboys in Washington, because this is probably the most unpredictable game this week. Dallas, I have no idea what we're going to see from them. Washington, their offense, their quarterback play makes it so that you can never bet on them unless it's a huge number and you're just hoping they cover. Like in a pick'em, a game where you think they can win, there's no chance you're betting on this game. So when I look at the matchups, I think it's all up to how does the Cowboys defense perform versus the Washington offense? Because I think that's the most unpredictable part of this game. Because the offense of the Cowboys, the defense of Washington, is the strength of both of their teams. Andy Dalton struggled under pressure last week. The 2 tackles for the Cowboys being out, which was a really bad performance from the offensive line of Dallas, which caused Dalton to be under pressure constantly versus a much worse unit than what Washington offers up front in the Cardinals, is very concerning in this game. The fact that it's in Washington, the fact that their strength is their pass rush and their ability to get after quarterbacks, that is concerning. So Andy Dalton is going to need some help from Zeke. He's going to need some help on the ground to keep those guys off of his back. Dallas has shown that they've been really good versus Washington over the past few years, but this is a new coaching staff. So how much of that do you take into account? On the flip side, like I said, that is the question. Like, how effective is Kyle Allen? How effective is Gibson and McLaurin? I don't really see a guy that can slow down McLaurin in this matchup for Dallas, so he should eat. He should have 100 yards in this game. I don't think they'll really be able to run the ball that well, but Dallas has not been great defending the run. I mean, they let Kenyon Drake go off last week, who struggled all year. So just from a matchup standpoint, even though my analytical and gambling brain is telling me that this is a bounce back spot for the Cowboys, I think Washington is just the better team in terms of the matchup here. And they're at home, which I don't think is a big deal in 2020, but it still matters to me a tiny bit, and it's at least a tiebreaker. So I'm going to think that even a bad Washington offense can have a better day than they typically have to allow them to win this game. Because I do see Washington pressuring Dalton into maybe 1 or 2 turnovers, which could switch the game. Zeke doesn't have really any confidence right now. So I'm going to go with Washington. I'm not confident about it. I don't love it. The fact that I saw Dallas get run over by the Cardinals is really making me lean towards Washington. But again, my gambling brain of saying, okay, what would this line be last week? It would probably be Dallas like -4, -5, -6 even. Like Dallas would be a decently sized favorite if they didn't just get ran over by the Cardinals. But seeing as how they can't block anybody, Zeke is nervous back there, Dalton doesn't look good under pressure, and no matchup for McLaurin, I'm going to go with Washington. So give me Washington in this game. The next game is the Battle of Ohio Part 2. We saw this first one on Thursday Night Football. The Browns basically bullied the Bengals on their way to a big victory. And the Bengals were able to kind of cover and keep that close at the end of the day. But that game really wasn't as close as the score indicated in the first matchup, because the Browns were steamrolling the Bengals, and then the Bengals with Joe Burrow just made it competitive and were feisty enough to make it somewhat close and entertaining. So keeping that in mind, will that happen again? Now, I would say yes, but my problem is the Bengals have looked better offensively since then. T. Higgins has gotten it going. AJ Green seems to have gotten it going a little bit. Burrow's playing pretty well. They looked good versus the Colts offensively. They're hitting big plays down the field. And Joe Mixon's been more involved as a receiver. A lot of things that the Bengals were doing offensively in that first matchup, I think have just grown and gotten better. And we're going to see a better product from them from the jump offensively in this game. So that scares me versus a Browns defense that isn't good. Like, Myles Garrett is good, but I really don't know who else is. Denzel Ward I like. They're struggling versus the run. They're struggling versus the pass. If Myles Garrett doesn't create pressure, nobody really does. So I do think the Bengals can move the ball, okay? I think they can make this competitive. But it's really the Browns' lack of confidence in Baker Mayfield that has me truly worried. And I brought up how bad Baker has been playing on the bottom line, so go check that out when you want to check it out if you haven't already. But I don't think it's a lack of confidence in Baker from the coaching. I think it's a lack of confidence in Baker from a player perspective. Just imagine how you would be. How confident are you in Baker as an offensive lineman blocking for him, as Kareem Hunt, as Odell, as Jarvis Landry, as Austin Hooper? How confident can you possibly be? And as a defense, what if Baker comes out there, has a bad start, throws the ball to the other team? The Bengals could easily win this game. That's why I'm not betting on this game. I'm not putting any money on this game. I am going to say that the Browns win because they're more talented than the Bengals. And I guess I'll take them to cover, but I'm not confident at all about this pick. I might actually change this pick once it comes to Instagram. That's where I typically give you my final picks, both straight up and versus the spread. So check out Instagram for the final picks. I might change to the Bengals depending on injury reports and who's playing and who's not. But I'm going to say the Browns win because they steamrolled the Bengals in the first matchup. They're more talented. They got more big playmakers. But if Baker loses this game, I would not be surprised. But the games that the Browns have lost is because they've played defenses that have been able to pressure Baker. The Ravens and the Steelers. I don't know if the Bengals, they don't play that similar blitz style where they come after you in all these different ways. They confuse you in all these different ways. They're not really like that. They're not built like that. So because of that, I think the Browns get back on track, and the Browns feel to me like a team that they're going to beat every bad team, but they can't beat any good teams. So I'm going to take the Browns to win and the Browns to cover. The next game is the Carolina Panthers at the New Orleans Saints. Saints minus 7.5 in this game. Once I initially saw this number, it seemed a little high. But then factoring in that the Saints are coming off of a bye, the Panthers are quite injured up front on their defensive line, and Michael Thomas is coming back, which is huge. There might not be a receiver more important to their team than Michael Thomas. I am going to pick the Saints to win this game, and I will also take the Saints to cover. This probably won't be one of my best bets, but again, Sean Payton, room to prepare, room to study, room to look at their weaknesses through the first few weeks and adjust is key to me here, because I think this is going to be a game where the Saints defense gets back on track a little bit. I don't think the Saints defense is quite as bad as they've been playing. I think they're going to have a better game here. They can stop the run effectively. It's really the pass that you got to worry about. I do think the Panthers, Teddy Bridgewater, they're going to move the ball, but I think the Saints can come up with a few big plays on defense. It's really where I'm concerned, the defense of Carolina versus the Saints offense. I think the Saints can really run the ball really, really well on the Panthers, which is just going to put the Panthers in a bind because the Panthers cannot stop the run. They're one of the worst run defenses in football. Alvin Kamara has been the best running back in the league. Latavius Murray, this offensive line, the ability to run the ball. Then you throw Michael Thomas in there. You throw the play action in there with what Sean Payton can do with Drew Brees. It's going to make life easy on Drew Brees. And these are the matchups that the Saints can win easily and run away with because it's not putting a lot of pressure on their old quarterback. So because of that, I think the Saints win. I think the Saints cover something like 30 to 20, something like that, something in that ballpark. I'm going to take the Saints to win and the Saints to cover. You also have to factor in that Sean Payton basically invented the offense that the Panthers are running in Carolina, being that that's the LSU offense from a year ago. They pretty much molded it after Sean Payton's offense. So Sean Payton's going to be able to give a few things to Dennis Allen on the defensive side of the ball, like this concept. They're going to be familiar with the things that the Panthers are doing on offense. So from that perspective, I would not be comfortable taking the 7.5. I feel like after a bye, the preparation, I'm taking the great coach. I'm taking the better team, the more talented team, and the better team on both lines of scrimmage to dominate, to bully, and to win in the Dome at home. So I'm taking the Saints here. Next game is the Detroit Lions at the Atlanta Falcons. This, to me, is one of the sneaky games of the week. As I brought up on the bottom line, this could be an extremely exciting game. It doesn't really matter much to the Atlanta Falcons, but it matters a lot to the Detroit Lions. The Lions, if they can get to 3-3, then they got a shot at making a wild card, probably saving Matt Patricia's job, which is probably a big deal to Matt Patricia. I'm not sure, right? The Lions looked a lot better. They probably had the most convincing win of anyone a week ago, other than maybe Tampa, winning like 34-16 over Jacksonville, Jacksonville, kind of like Atlanta, right? They have a pretty good offense, but their defense has really struggled. Atlanta, on the other hand, they dominated the Vikings. I mean, Julio came back. It seemed to reinvigorate Matt Ryan, Calvin Ridley. They really were able to get after it in the passing game. Offensive line's been better than expected, I would say. The run game has been below average, but that was expected. The defense played a little bit better, but how much of that is just the incompetence of the Vikings offense without Dalvin Cook? So when I look at this matchup, I'm not sure about the injuries for the Lions in terms of the secondary, who's playing, who's not, who's in, who's out. So that could change this pick. But my initial thought was the Lions, and I'm sticking with that thought. I think the Lions are the more complete team. I think the Lions will do a better job of defending Atlanta than Atlanta will do of defending Detroit. I also think Detroit has the X factor of, according to PFF right now, having one of the better offensive lines run blocking wise in football. I think this is a big spot for DeAndre Swift to have another big game here as a receiver and a runner. I think that keeps Matt Ryan and that offense on the sidelines. Long drives for Matthew Stafford. They put up a 30 burger in this game. I think Atlanta has high 20s in them. I think this will be a really competitive, fun game. But I think Detroit is better on the defensive side of the ball. I think they're more competitive. I think they have better coverage guys, which I think what they'll do is, knowing Patricia, double Julio and probably put their best guy on Calvin Ridley. Ridley may eat on a one-on-one matchup there, but I think they'd rather live with that than live with Julio. So I think the battle between the Matt and the Matthew will be a fun one, but I just see Detroit being the better, more complete team with more of an edge and more of a reason to actually go out and win this game. So I'm going to take Detroit to win in a shootout in the Dome, 34-30. All right. Next, we have the Buffalo Bills at the New York Jets, a classic AFC East showdown. The New York Jets, I've been saying week after week after week, the worst team in football, and I'm very disappointed that I have not just bet on the team that's played the Jets because I do not believe they've covered the spread yet. The Jets are horrendous. Joe Flacco took a sack last week where he ran backwards 25 yards and then eventually got sacked. I don't know what he was doing. That could happen again here. I think this is a big confidence booster for the Bills defense in this game, where if they're able to put together a good game here, maybe force a couple turnovers, some sacks, this could, in the long run, really help their confidence moving forward. This is a confidence builder. This is a get back on track game. Seeing as how the Bills have lost 2 games in a row, the Bills can come back and put together a really nice showing. So for the reason of motivation, I don't see this being a slip-up game for the Bills. This is a bad spot for the Jets, playing a team that's way better than them, with better coaching than them, with better quarterback play than them, with better everything than them, and they're pissed off. I think the Bills win. I think the Bills cover 13. I don't care. I'm taking the Bills to win 35-10. Yeah, you heard it. 35-10. Bills, Josh Allen, big game. Stephon Diggs, big game. And the defense has a couple turnovers, and they win this one easily. The Houston Texans at the Green Bay Packers. This game actually probably will be a lot of fun, depending on how well Aaron Rodgers can bounce back in this matchup. I think this is a real good spot to bet on the Packers, because I think if the Packers beat the Bucs, a lot of people would be looking at this game for the Packers as a foregone conclusion. But given that the Bucs steamrolled Green Bay last week and they really made Aaron Rodgers and this Packers team look real bad, I think a lot of people are going to say, you know what, the Packers are overrated. The Texans can upset them, Deshaun Watson, all this stuff. But when you look at the matchups, this is truly a terrible matchup for Houston. The Packers are one of the best running teams in football, and it's just, the Texans might be the worst run defense in football right now. Aaron Jones is going to have a huge day. Aaron Rodgers is going to get back on track. He's going to be angry. He's going to be pissed off as well. He's going to be wanting, to get back on track. Devontae Adams is healthy. I don't know who's covering him in Houston. They don't have a Carlton Davis there. J.J. Watt looks like half of himself right now, so they're not creating any pressure, even without David Bakhtiari. I'm not worried about that. I think the Packers, they are better in games where they run the ball and they hit the play action. When they can run the ball, it opens up their offense. That is what they're built on. That is why I thought they would lose to the Bucs, and they did. On the flip side, the Texans' offensive line sure has played a little bit better, but still you got to deal with Kenny Clark and Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith and that pass rush. And as I said last week and on the bottom line, they're a front-running defense that when they get a lead, they can create pressure. They get creative with their blitzing schemes. They're good in the secondary, good enough to slow down the Texans from creating big plays. I do see the Texans scoring some points here. I do think Deshaun is just too good to hold back. Will Fuller's playing awesome. Brandon Cooks is playing really well. Their offense has weaponry, and they're starting to click in Houston, and I really do love Romeo Crennel, but this team is just super undermanned on the offensive line and on the defense. This is a reason they lose, and I think the Packers win the game, and I think they will cover. I think they come out with revenge, and they have a big game. So I'm going to say the Packers win 38, Texans 27. Kansas City at Denver. This is a game that I actually really love for point spread reasons. I loved it more when it was a little lower than this. I think it's now 9.5 to protect from teaser, because I think if this was like 8.5, there would be a good reason to tease this down to 2.5 with a 6-point teaser. But given that it's now 9.5 people that will be doing 6-point teasers, it's still 3.5, which is still, if this game's close, it's a field goal. They only win by a field goal. People might be a little bit slow to bet on it. I think the Chiefs destroy the Broncos here. The Broncos, yes, they played good last week. I thought they put together a nice game. All credit to them to go into New England and to win. That's never easy to do, even if New England was undermanned, even if New England didn't practice a ton. Still, great win for the Broncos. But the Broncos are now coming off a huge win. I mean, the biggest win in Vic Fangio's history as a coach. They're really super undermanned. I mean, their offense is lacking a lot of playmakers. Their defense is lacking a lot of secondary guys. And just overall, they match up well with the Patriots because they're big. They can defend the run. They're vicious. They're aggressive defensively, and they can get after you. But when you play that style versus the Chiefs, who have all these weapons and all this speed, and Mahomes and Andy Reid, and the fact that they have not had an answer for them in past matchups, it's scary. I think the Chiefs destroy the Broncos in this game. Plus, the Chiefs, they're able to get big. They're able to stop the run when they need to. Locke did make some really big-time throws last week, but that's probably unrepeatable. So I expect the Chiefs' defense to play pretty well as well. I think the Chiefs win by like 20. I think this is one of the bets of the week. I'll take the Chiefs 31, Broncos 13. Broncos, even if the Chiefs defense can do what New England's did and just hold them to field goals, there's no chance the Broncos win this game. I'm sorry. The Broncos just don't match up well. They don't got a good pass rush unless they blitz. If you blitz the Chiefs, you're toast. They don't have good corners. Okay, they might be able to match up with Kelsey with their safety play, but not the receivers. And then Locke is inconsistent. The offensive line isn't great. And they can run the ball all right, but not well enough. So I think the Chiefs destroy them. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Broncos fans. This is not me saying this because you beat my team. This is just me being honest. They match up well with New England. I always thought that, but they don't match up well with Kansas City. All right. Jacksonville at the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers, surprisingly, a pretty big number. They are favored by 7.5 points. So that's pretty surprising, to be quite honest with you. 7.5 points, man. That is surprising because the Chargers, I think, have only won one game. They won one game, right? So a one-win team favored by over a touchdown versus another team that I believe has only won one game. That's pretty shocking. So I'm going to take the points here because I just don't believe in the Chargers enough to cover 7.5. Like, there's a difference. I heard the PFF guys talking about this on their podcast. Like, Justin Herbert is playing, he is showing a lot of promise, but there's a difference between showing a lot of promise and actually playing at a very high level. And that to me is what Justin Herbert's doing. He's making a lot of throws for a young player that makes you say, wow. But when you really compare it to all the other players in the league, like, it's not like he's playing at an elite level. He's not like top 10. He's playing well, but it's like it's in a promising rookie playing well. It's not like a grand scope of the NFL playing well. I think Jacksonville, they just got kind of destroyed by Detroit. Their defense is really, really not playing well, but I think the Jags are going to at least cover the spread. I'm taking the Chargers to win the game, but I think that the Jags, it's just too many points to give, to put up with only a one-win team. A roster that's been, and a team that's been shaky. I mean, they lost a game that they were favored versus the Panthers, which everyone thought they would win. They lost that game. So I just don't have enough confidence to say the Chargers will cover more than a touchdown spread. So I'm going to take Jacksonville to cover the spread, but I'll take the Chargers to win. No Austin Eckler has kind of hurt their backfield, their rushing attack. The offensive line for the Chargers isn't great. Keenan Allen's a little beat up, but Herbert is playing well. Their defense is getting a little bit healthier. But Jacksonville, Minshew is kind of a baller at times. They got plenty of weapons out there to make plays, and Minshew is a good decision maker. So it's not like he usually loses his team games. So I'm going to say 24-17 for the Chargers. Jacksonville barely covers this game. I like the Chargers. I can't say that they're going to, if they cover, I wouldn't be shocked, but I just not willing to say that they will cover more than a touchdown and an extra point versus any team in the NFL. I'll take those points. All right. The stream of the week I have decided is the San Francisco 49ers at my New England Patriots in Foxborough. Patriots are minus 2 points after getting shellacked by the Denver Broncos last week, 18-12 in a kicker fest. They now face a San Francisco team that bounced back big versus the Rams, which last week I said the 49ers would beat the Rams, and they did. This is an interesting matchup, I think, because, and this is the stream of the week for one reason and one reason only, Kyle Shanahan versus Bill Belichick. You could argue this is the best offensive mind versus the best defensive mind in football. I think, how is Belichick going to stop George Kittle? That's an awesome matchup. I think, how does Belichick, formation-wise, scheme-wise, match up with Kyle's creativity to run the ball on offense? And then on the flip side, I think, can Cam get back on track? Can the offensive line regain health? And with actual practice, how will the Patriots offense look this week? So this game goes two ways, in my opinion. I think it's rather a slugfest that either team can win on the last drive of the game or near in the fourth quarter, or it's a game where New England, it starts out slow, and then their offense creates some big plays where they actually run away with it. So those are the two things that I see. Rather, a close game that comes down to one possession for either team in a slugfest defensive battle, or the Patriots offense with a healthy offensive line opens up, and similarly to the Dolphins game, while not as big of a spread, they run away with the game, because I don't think the 49ers will be able to move the ball very effectively in this game. There's not many offenses that can move the ball very effectively versus the Patriots. They don't have Raheem Mostert, which is a huge loss for their rushing attack. We've seen it that with Jerick McKinnon and whoever else they're going to throw out there, they just have not been able to replicate the success that Mostert has had on the ground. The Patriots have been the best team versus elite tight ends this year. They shut down Darren Waller for literally 0 catches. They shut down Travis Kelce. So they will have a plan for George Kittle. Can the other guys make plays? And I would say yes, but Jimmy Garoppolo is the reason the 49ers will not win this game. Bill Belichick knows Jimmy Garoppolo. He knows what he had for breakfast. He knows his first girlfriend. He knows who he went to his grad with. He knows, what his uncle does for his job. So, Belichick knows Jimmy Garoppolo. He knows his tendencies. He knows his strengths. He knows his weaknesses. And because of that, they will really slow down the 49ers passing attack. And where I think they'll stop them is they'll really focus on defending the middle of the field, clogging up the middle of the field, forcing Jimmy to throw down the field and to the sidelines, and taking away George Kittle. So because of that, Patriots win this game, even if their offense isn't great in this game. Because I think on the flip side, the 49ers defense and just the scheme they play, where they have the 8-man box, where they have that extra safety in the box, it helps them, like Seattle, to defend the run. And their secondary is getting healthier, so they can match up with New England in the secondary versus New England's receivers, because they're not very good. But if that offensive line for New England is healthy, even somewhat, I think their running game will be good enough, and they'll find creative ways to pass the ball and play action the 49ers to death, like they did to Seattle. And I think New England will end up winning this game. I'm going to say they win 20-13, New England, and they cover the 2 points. That was the last game. Stream of the week, by the way. All right, we have 3 games remaining, and then we'll get to comments. The Seattle Seahawks at the Arizona Cardinals. This is a really fascinating game, guys. This is a big game. I don't know if it's a big game for Seattle, but it's a big game for Arizona. Arizona just ran over the Dallas Cowboys. Defensively, offensively, no Chandler Jones, didn't matter. Kenyon Drake had his best game of the season. Kyler Murray was scrambling, he was running around, he was making plays. Now, Seattle had a bye week. They're getting healthier on defense. Jamal Adams should be back in this game. And, okay, side point. I want to see Seattle trade for a defensive lineman. Can they trade for like Carlos Dunlap or Geno Atkins, Ryan Kerrigan, like somebody? Trade for someone because you need some sort of pass rusher in this scheme. Now, I think the reason Seattle wins this game is because I think Arizona's overrated, to be quite honest with you. Kyler Murray's passing game has not been good basically all year. His ability to run has been good. I don't necessarily know if it's Kyler's fault, though. I think the scheme has not allowed him to open up the passing game as much as he wanted. I think a lot of teams are really all over the concepts of what Arizona wants to do on the offensive side of the ball from a passing standpoint. It just seems like even Dallas, like 9 for 24, like even Dallas's secondary didn't really struggle that much. They gave up a big play down the field to Christian Kirk. But other than that, like not a ton. And Seattle's is bad, but with Jamal Adams back, Quentin Dunbar and Shaquille Griffin, they're not too bad. So I think the difference here is Russell Wilson coming off a bye with Pete Carroll's ability to study this team, ability to understand the college game from his college days, take some of that to be able to defend Kyler Murray, who's basically the light version of Russell Wilson, and then Jamal Adams being that spy in the box, do-it-all player to defend Kyler Murray. That's a big deal to me. And then on the other side of the ball, you have Metcalf and Lockett and maybe Antonio Brown soon that they could attack that weak secondary with. Budda Baker's playing great. I would say Byron Murphy's playing really well as well. But they just don't have the manpower, I think, to defend the Seahawks. So I'm going to go with the Seahawks to score more than the Cardinals. I'm going to say 30 for the Seahawks, 31 for the Seahawks, and like 20, 23, 24 for the Cardinals. Now, the scary part here is I don't like the 3.5 because the Seahawks always lose those because the Seahawks play everybody close. So there is a chance that Seattle wins and still doesn't cover the 3.5. So it's a little scary, but I think Seattle is the better team. And because they have that extra week of prep, extra week of rest, and because I believe in the offense and the let Russ cook, I'm going to take Seattle to win and to cover, but it's going to be barely. You're going to be sweating. You are going to be sweating. So I'll take Seattle to win and to cover, but this probably isn't going to be a best bet for me just because of how shaky Seattle is, because they always have close games no matter how good they are in comparison to their opponent, which they are better than the Cardinals. They're basically a better version of the Cardinals. So I'll take Seattle. If the Cardinals do win that game, though, I have to give them props, and I think they're officially in that playoff conversation. Sunday Night Football, the Las Vegas Raiders at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's the return of John Gruden. This game is in Las Vegas. The Bucs are started out as a 3-point field goal favorite. Now they are 4-point. It might have even gone up from that. But what actually happened was Trent Brown, I believe, has the COVID. So the rest of the offensive line was put on the COVID list. The entirety of the offensive line. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4. LeBron James, not 5. Right? So they had all of them go on the COVID list. So you had to worry about that. I really don't know what's going on there from the Raiders' perspective. If that's the case, if all those guys are out and they're not suiting up, if they're not playing, this is not going to be pretty. Shaq Barrett, Sue, and JPP versus your backup offensive line. Yeah, good luck with that, sir. But even if they do play, I'm taking the Bucks. Okay, I still don't get why the Bucks started as only 3-point favorites. They just beat the Packers with equally as good of an offensive line, a much better quarterback, Devontae Adams, and probably a better defense. I know it was at home, but they just beat them by 28. Not 1, not 2, not 3, 28 points. I don't understand why the Bucks are only 3-point favorites here. Maybe there's some John Gruden, serum going around or something. I don't know. It's Kool-Aid. But, I don't see it, guys. I really don't. I really don't see it. The Bucks defense is the best in football. They can defend the run. They can defend the pass. Their linebackers are ludicrous. They're fast as hell. They can defend Darren Waller because they got Antoine Winfield Jr., who might be the defensive rookie of the year right now. And they have those linebackers with speed who can cover. They're not really worried about Ruggs because, Davis is a top 10 corner right now. And Jamel Dean can cover right now. And Sean Murphy-Bunting. I mean, all their corners got speed. So I'm not really too worried about that unless they just go zero blitz. But the Bucks have gotten better. Todd Bowles is coaching his ass off. And then offensively, the Bucks have one of the best offensive lines right now. They're protecting Tom Brady. The least pressure is allowed. They had one bad game versus the Bears. But it's not like the Raiders can get after Tom. Tom's going to have all day to throw the ball. They've ran the ball effectively. Ronald Jones, top 3 in rushing right now. The Raiders are not great versus the run, although they're not as bad as they are versus the pass. They're missing guys in the secondary with Abram, and I believe one of their corners is hurt. Chris Godwin's getting healthier. Mike Evans getting healthier. Gronk looks better. I really don't see how the Raiders win this game in any fashion or form. If they had an elite quarterback, I'd say they had a chance. But Derek Carr is a guy he's not elite. He's just not. And they're not going to be able to possess the ball like they did versus a team like the Chiefs because you cannot run the ball versus the Bucks. So you can't run the ball versus the Bucks. Josh Jacobs into a pile of 10 dudes to get 2 yards, setting up 2nd and 8. A screen pass. Devin White's all over it. 3rd and 7. 3rd and 7. Good luck. Sack. Punt the ball. Brady gets the ball. Chris Godwin and Mike Evans one-on-one with those average cornerbacks. I don't get it. I don't see it at all. This is probably one of my best bets. So I'm going Bucks to win. I'm going Bucks to cover. Yeah, it's a primetime game on the road, but I'm not too worried. This is a Bucks team that's focused. They're getting better. They played flawless last week, and I expect that to continue. As long as they don't come out flat, which I don't think they will, I think they win this game. If it was not a Sunday night game, I would be okay, maybe they could come out flat and maybe this is a trap game. But because it is a primetime game, what's the chances a team like the Bucks doesn't comes out flat on a primetime game? Probably not a lot. All right, so Monday Night Football, you have the Chicago Bears at the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are at home and favored by 5.5 points. This is another one that made me scratch my head for why the Rams are favored by 5.5. Again, guys, they beat the dang NFC East. Okay? They're 4-0 versus the NFC East. They lost to the 49ers and they lost to the Bills. Okay? So they beat the Giants, Washington, Eagles, Cowboys. And they're favored over the Bears by 5.5 points, who's beat a decent Panthers team. They shouldn't have beat the Lions, but they beat the Lions. They beat the Bucks, okay? Their defense has been elite this year. They've really been good. They've been pressuring quarterbacks at a really high level. Their secondary has been solid. I don't want to say like it's upper echelon, but it's really good. Their offense has been not great, but Nick Foles has been fine. I think Nagy has coached his ass off, so I don't really see like a coaching advantage here for the Rams that's clear. And remember those matchups where the Bears dominated the Rams in the past? The same thing could happen here where Akeem Hicks and Khalil Mack just are in the face of Jared Goff. Jared Goff is bad under pressure, makes mistakes, and it's not like the receivers for the Rams, they're overrated. Like Robert Woods, I like, but like he's not threatening defenses to go for a 40, 50-yard touchdown. He's a great intermediate route runner. But like Fuller's been playing well enough to cover him one-on-one to a degree where it's not a great matchup for the Rams. Cooper Kupp has been sloppy. He hasn't really been himself. Jalen Johnson's been playing well as a rookie. Like the Rams can win this game. I wouldn't be surprised, but I think the Bears are better than them. I think the Bears are a better team. I think the Bears have a better defense. So the Rams defense isn't bad. Now, I would say, the Rams defense matches up well with the Bears because Aaron Donald can create pressure on Nick Foles. The Bears can't really run the ball. And Allen Robinson and Jalen Ramsey, that's a matchup one-on-one. So the Bears are going to have to find ways to be creative to pass the ball to their running backs, to get Jimmy Graham involved, who could have a pretty good game here. But I think they can do enough on offense. And if they do have a really good game on defense, which I think they can, and they stop the run of the Rams, they force mistakes of Goff, I think the Bears win this game outright. So I'm going to take the Bears to win the game. Although I'm not confident that they win, I am confident that this game is within 5.5. So I'll take the Bears plus the 5.5 points. It's definitely going to be a close game, especially because I think it's going to be an under. This is a good under bet in my opinion, and I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, which again, guys, low-scoring games plus you take the points because lower score, less points being scored overall, more chance you cover. So I'm going to take the Bears plus the 5.5 in this game, and I will also take them to win outright just because I think they're a good matchup for the Rams. There you have it, though. There you have it. Week number 7. Week number 7 picks. If you enjoyed these picks and the breakdowns, make sure you do Gronk Spike that like button and subscribe to the channel for more NFL. Guys, definitely do subscribe and do Gronk Spike that like button. Also, for those of you asking, why isn't he in a Bucs uniform? Bro, he scored 1 touchdown where he Gronk spiked. I need to find a good picture. If anyone finds me a good picture of him in a Bucs uniform, Gronk spiking, send it to me so I can change it. But until then, I cannot change it because I need a legitimate picture. All right? Just saying. I also have a couple other things to plug as we get to the chat here quick. So if you guys have questions regarding the NFL, matchups this week, fantasy, whatever it may be, get in those comments right now and I will answer you. But I do have a few things to plug. So the first thing to plug is the Discord. Join the Bottom Line View community on the Discord. We have nearly 200 people in there. We're talking NFL. We're talking all sports and entertainment in there. Daily arguments, debates, fun stuff in the Discord. Link is in the description. Join it. It's free. And, it's just a bunch of dudes and also some females in there. We're getting the demographic. It's going up. Okay, percentage points. I think it's because Turtle's in there, but he brings the ladies. We got the Discord. It's rolling. We're trying to get to 200, so help us out and join the Discord. Also, the Insta. All right, the Bottom Line View, the same as the name. The Bottom Line View, Instagram. Kevin Durkant, his matchups that he wants to watch this week. That's on there. Okay, we have Ultra's Top 10. We have exclusive content, me going live on Instagram, which is going to happen more frequently, I won't be live on here. I'll only be live on Instagram. So if you have an Instagram account, it doesn't hurt to also go follow us on there. And finally, the last plug is the Patreon. So if you want to support the channel, support me, support the Bottom Line View, you can become a patron, get exclusive content, exclusive videos, exclusive best bets on the Patreon. It starts at $3 a month, guys. Patreon.com/BLV. Link is also in the description. Let's get it going, man. Let's get it going. Let's get some comments in here. Katie says, do Madden, please. Yes, do Madden. It's coming up. It's coming up, Katie. We're going to do Madden soon. Scropo says, who is better, Mike Evans or Travis Kelce? As a football player or like as a fantasy asset? Honestly, I would rather have Mike Evans on my football team. I love Kelce, but I think Evans is basically a tight end body who can also play receiver. Well, I feel like Kelce is a receiver but plays tight end. So if I had to pick one to have on my team, I would take Mike Evans. Ultra says, Mitch, Michael Thomas is currently injured with a hamstring and is questionable. I don't know where you were getting that info that he was active from. I do believe he will be active because he said on First Take that he will be playing. That was like last week, but he did say that. Jake says, Mitch, should I start Amari Cooper this week? Depending on your other options, I do think he's still startable in fantasy for sure. He's at least a top 3 receiver for your team. Maybe even a top 2 receiver for your team. Durkant says, Mitch is the Matthew Stafford of Madden. He always loses in playoff games. Thank you for that. Leonardo says, Brady doesn't throw jump balls. Yeah, he does in the red zone. Evans has how many touchdowns this year? Like 6? Evans has just been hurt, which is kind of sucks. But, yeah. What do I think about the Giants? Asked Katie. I don't think they're very good, but I think, what do I think? I think they need to make their decision on Daniel Jones. Is he the guy? Is he not the guy? It's hard to tell right now because he doesn't have a lot of help around him. I think next year, if they can build their offensive line, they might go somewhere. I also think they probably need to get rid of Jason Garrett next year. I do like Joe Judge, though, and his job of what he's done with the defense and the special teams this year. It's definitely been an improvement. Keith says, is it worth Seattle signing Antonio Brown as opposed to help with the defense? If I had to choose one, I would choose to trade for a pass rusher. But, I mean, Antonio Brown is one of the greatest receivers of all time. And I still think he walks into the NFL, he rolls out of bed, and he's probably, at least, this is being conservative, a top 20 receiver in the NFL. Maybe still a top 10 receiver in the NFL. So if he comes back, I still think he has speed, he has twitch, he has hands, he might be like a top 3 route runner of all time. So he comes back and he makes that offense almost unstoppable. But it's just his head. Like, where's his head at? Where is he at in terms of his intentions to play? But I definitely don't agree with people saying that he is not worth it, because if he's not worth it, you just cut him. Like, okay, it's his last chance in the NFL. If he's an idiot, if he screws up, you sign him to 1 year, $5 million. He messes up. Boom. See you later. He's definitely worth it, because if he comes in and he's a good citizen, he's a good dude, and you have like a Russell Wilson or an Aaron Rodgers or a Tom Brady who can deal with his personality, and you have a good coach and you have a good culture, Antonio Brown will be welcomed in. Players love him. He's a phenomenal talent. And I think he'll be, he's not going to be a problem. Like, people saying he's going to be a problem, I don't get it. Like, I've never understood this thing with people not willing to take chances on talent. Okay, so if if he's an idiot, just get rid of him. You're not signing him to a 5-year, $50 million contract. Like, this is where I don't understand people saying these things. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. I don't get it. So if you can sign him, sign him. But for Seattle, I would rather them upgrade the defense. Then again, if they get AB, they might be unstoppable. So does defense even matter? Freddie says, do you think Evan Ingram torches the Eagles? I think he has a good game. but they need to find better, more creative ways of getting him involved other than just running Jason Witten stop routes. Like, the occasional screen would be nice, something. Opium says, Mitch, AB back to the Pats. I would like that. I think it was going to work last year, but it wasn't actually AB with the Patriots that made it not work. It was AB with the law that made it not work. That is the troubling part that you can't avoid. But AB last year was going to work with New England, and that team would have been a lot different with him because I think they would have been, probably a contender. But it didn't work out. I just don't know what Robert Kraft would have to say about that because they did not leave on the best of terms. Cody says, who do you got winning tomorrow? I just made my picks, so I'll go back and watch. Jake says, I had Crowder and DK Metcalf receiving. Mitch, regarding the Cooper question. Well, DK is definitely above him. Crowder is more consistent, but Cooper has higher upside than Crowder probably. Trek says, do you think the Giants will trade any of their players? Maybe Evan Ingram. That's the one that I've heard. Other than that, I don't really think so. Ball Out says, do you think the Lions can make a run? I think they can make the playoffs. Making a run is a totally different question. I don't think they can make a run, but I think they can make the playoffs. Bilo says, should I trade McLaurin and Montgomery for D-Hop or Julio, or D-Hop and Julio? Because that's a different question. It depends who you have at running back, because I think Montgomery is a really solid option at running back, really consistent. So if you have a lot of depth there, then sure, do the trade. But if you don't, I'd rather keep Terry and Montgomery. Singh says, Mitch, today is the 1-year anniversary of Sam Darnold seeing ghosts. That's interesting. All it just says, was nice to see Julio have a monster game last week. You're talking about the future Patriot, Julio Jones. Leonardo says, I have this weird feeling that Mitch is Bill Belichick's long-lost nephew, and Mitch knows it, but Belichick doesn't, and that's why he defends the hell out of him. Yeah, I'm defending the hell out of the greatest coach in NFL history. Ballout says, do you think the Lions will make a run? I just answered that. Higgins or Cooks for FanDuel? That's a tough question. I think I would go with Cooks, because I think probably Fuller will see a lot of Alexander, which is a tougher matchup. I think Cooks will feast in that game, but I could see Higgins having a big game too. Let's Talk Politics says, is it me, Mitch, or are YouTube streams pausing out of nowhere nonstop? I haven't noticed that as much. Jake says, Mitch, thank you for your late night magic. You always come through, bro. Thank you, Jake. Big Al says, Kenyon Drake versus Seattle or James Conner versus Tennessee. I would go with James Conner. Katie says, who should I start, Tyler Lockett or AJ Green? I would go with Lockett. When's the movie list? Which movie list are you talking about? My top 10? I definitely got to do that. I definitely got to do that for the Patreon. Ballout says, do you think... Oh my God, I've answered that question. Do you think the Saints will be better off with Brady instead of Breeze? I do think Brady's better than Breeze, but I don't know, man. Breeze's recognition of the system is something that I think Brady is better by quite a bit, actually, than Breeze right now. But I don't think that outweighs Breeze's familiarity with the system of what Sean Payton does. And I don't know how familiar Brady would be. Trek says, do you think the Giants will trade any of their players? I already kind of commented on that. Seattle or Arizona? I have Seattle winning. Do you think Dallas will fire Mike Nolan soon? Maybe, but probably not till after the year. Durkan says, Mitch, if Tua doesn't work out, do you think we draft a guy or get a veteran? Probably another draft pick, but like, how long are you willing to give Tua? Right? That's the question. Honestly, I could see you signing a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo if he becomes available. They're similar players in a way, and of course, Flores knows Jimmy pretty well, so maybe that would be somebody that could, if Fitzpatrick retires, could come in and compete with Tua if they're not certain about Tua. But I don't think they'll bring in like a legitimate solve. Like, they'll bring in like a guy who could be a starter, but not necessarily like the guy. Like, they wouldn't like sign Cam Newton like to like a 3-year contract if he becomes a free agent after this year. Rob says, are you confident with Drew Lock while under pressure? Lock can make throws under pressure. Yes, but he also is very volatile. So he can make as good of a throw as anybody in football, but he can also make a lot of bad throws. So that's the thing with Locke right now is like kind of like Josh Allen in his first season. He's really good or really bad. Like that's kind of Drew Lock right now. So yes, he can, which is a good thing. So look at what he can do, not what he can't do when they're young. Big Al says, what's all this talk about Darnold being dealt to Dallas? I personally don't think it will happen. Ooh, that's interesting. I haven't heard any of that actually, but that would be interesting. Aldra says Julio, Odell, and AB all going to New England for Cam to overthrow each one by 10 yards. No, if they got any of those players, I think they would be a legitimate threat in the AFC. Who should I go for, Mahomes or Russell Wilson? I'm going to say Russell Wilson just because I think he has more reason to put up big numbers because their defense is so bad. Like, at least the Chiefs' defense can play somewhat. Leonardo says Drake or Juju. Depends what type of league it is. That's interesting, though. Let me know. If it's a full PPR, probably Juju. If it's half or a standard, I might go Drake there. Richard says, should I start Matthew Stafford or Ryan Tannehill? That's a really good question. I would probably go with Stafford, but Tannehill is definitely a guy to look for the future. Hugo says, hey, Mitch, do you think Robbie Anderson's a top 15 receiver? Thanks for those live streams. The quality of videos are top-notch. Thank you, Hugo. Right now, he's performing as one. At the end of the year, would I rank him as one? I don't know. When we get to that point, I'll let you know. But right now, he's playing as a top 15 receiver. Gregory says, do you remember losing the Broncos? Yes, I do. Why am I a Tua hater? Because I don't know. I just think he's a little overrated, guys. And Queen says, does King Henry rush for over 100 yards? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say Henry runs for like 80 yards. But all it takes is one big play with him, so maybe. Do you like college football? If so, who's your team? I do, but I'm a very casual fan. So I'm not like a diehard fan. I don't know a lot of the players, but I do watch occasionally. So I'm like a Michigan guy because of Tom Brady. I also like the U. So those are kind of my teams that I'll like cheer for when I see them on. I don't mind like Notre Dame or I'll watch Alabama. I'll watch the good teams. I'll watch Clemson. I'll watch Georgia, but I don't like necessarily cheer for them. Leonardo says Robbie Anderson over can't guard slants. Hey, Mitch, do you think Fuller is elite? Are you talking about Fuller, the receiver, or Fuller, the cornerbacks? Hugo says, what do you think is Belichick's plan to surround Cam with any talent? I think Belichick's plan is to play through his defense, run the football with a strong offensive line, but the part that they don't have any practice, it's hard to execute that kind of game plan, and when you don't have great talent at receiver, it makes it harder for you to win games on talent. You got to win it on scheme. And when you can't practice, you can't win on scheme. And then when your offensive line gets hurt, your run game isn't going to be as good. So, like, they want to run the ball. They want to control the clock. They want to be creative with Cam Newton. They want to run play action. And they want to play defense. And that's what they're going to do. And they're not going to make mistakes. But because of the whole COVID situation, it's kind of slowed that down. Now, I do think they need to get a receiver, and I think Bill probably realizes that because he's done that quite often when they haven't had receivers. He's gone out and he's tried to make a play for one. He did that plenty of times last year. It just didn't work out. So I think they're figuring it out. I trust Belichick, and Bill I trust. Justin says, I traded Jonnu Smith for Michael Thomas. I already have Kittle. That was a great trade. Yes. Michael Thomas. Are you kidding me? Who do you think is going to win, Tampa or Vegas? I have Tampa. Who should you start, Cam or Matt Ryan? I'd probably go with Matt Ryan, to be honest. Cam always has the higher floor, though, because Cam is a runner. So even if Cam plays poorly, he's going to put up good rushing stats. But Matt Ryan has a good matchup this week. It should be a high-scoring game, and I don't love Cam's matchup this week. So I would go with Matt Ryan this week. Do you think the Broncos can turn around their season? No. I think they'll be competitive in some games, but I don't think they're going to be in the playoffs or anything. They just have too many injuries right now. Next year, they're going to be interesting. Next year, we'll see. But right now, no. All right, guys. So I think I'm going to end it there. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, Gronk spike that like button. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more NFL. It's Mitch of the Bottom Line View. Peace.